Are you tired of worrying about your future or past mistakes? Do you sometimes have trouble making decisions and often regret them once you've made them? Welcome to the Transformational Peace Podcast, and I'm Dr. Lee. In this episode, we will explore the many signs of overthinking, its effect on our well-being, and begin to discuss some practical strategies to help. And thank you for clicking on this video, and if it provides you with encouragement, please click the subscribe or follow button below. Also, please share this video with someone you feel might find this information helpful. Hello friends, thanks for joining me, and today we'll be discussing Stop Overthinking Now, practical tips for peace of mind. Overthinking can be a common struggle that many individuals face, causing excessive worry and stress. This tendency to dwell on thoughts, replay scenarios, and anticipate future outcomes or past mistakes can lead to a cycle of negative emotions and mental exhaustion. Overthinkers often find themselves trapped in a web of what-ifs and hypothetical situations, unable to find peace in the present moment. I'm reminded of someone I had just begun working with years ago. They'd gone to college, done quite well, and were about 3 years into their current position. So as things normally go, this person felt stagnant and in need of a new challenge to upgrade their skill set and career track. So they put themselves out on cyberspace, and they had quickly secured an initial interview. Our first meeting after that was to prepare for the interview. I'll never forget that interview. The initial conversation went something like this. What if I haven't prepared enough for this interview? Or what if after all this preparation, I still don't get the job? This will be such a waste of time. And what if I get the final interview and I still don't get the job? Can you see the excessive rumination and heightened anxiety? I'm imagining that there are probably more than a few of you out there who can relate to this. So let me start by letting you know what we'll be discussing in this video. First, I'm going to define the meaning of overthinking and the root causes so we can learn how to not fall into the overthinking trap. Second, I'm going to talk about how it affects you in your relationships and future plans and goals. And third, I'm going to offer some practical solutions to overthinking based on its causes like anxiety, future worry, rumination, and fear of failure. No worries, I'll explain each of these terms as we go through the video. Overthinking is when our thoughts and or worries become caught in an endless loop or thought loop. This leads to an action or an inability to prepare for your next steps. It is typically caused by perfectionism, fear, or trauma. We usually keep overthinking because we get some sort of benefits from it. I'll give you a few examples of how this works. We can't handle uncertainty, so we try to control the outcomes by thinking literally of every possible outcome and reassuring ourselves. We tell ourselves that we can avoid messing up by trying to be perfect. Yeah, there's that perfectionism. With a false sense of security or control, we actually believe as we overanalyze the situation, we'll somehow be able to control it. So you see, when we overthink, we overanalyze and spend excess amounts of energy on something that is most probably out of our control. I call this the overthinking spiral, which is a cycle of negative thought patterns that can escalate and become overwhelming. Overthinking literally tricks our brain into thinking it is doing something beneficial. In reality, we believe that if we think about it more, we can solve the problem by preparing for the worst possible outcome. Clearly, that's not a solution. We create a narrative or story for the worry we're experiencing, and then we play the same scenario over and over again, and honestly, we self-sabotage. As a counterexample here, constructive thinkers or problem solvers, on the other hand, take risks and execute. They get really good at risk management, which makes them more successful with future risk. I'll talk more about this later in the video. Overthinking is when we create our own problems we're not even aware of, which steals our joy and destroys our relationships. Again, this is the thought loop we discussed in a prior video where we get mentally stuck creating problems that have very low probability of happening. We actually believe that by obsessing about something, we are doing ourselves a favor by preparing for the worst possible outcome. Catastrophizing anyone? No, thank you. And here are what I think are the three main types of overthinking. And the first is decision paralysis or analysis paralysis. Yes, you are paralyzed. We often overthink to the point of being frozen with inaction. This is often called the fear of regrets because if you fail, you regret the decision you just made. And here's the interesting paradox. By not choosing to make a decision, we choose to overthink, which is in and of itself a decision, or a decision of indecision, which actually causes the paralysis. And boy, was that a mouthful. And one more further truth about decision paralysis. If we don't make a decision, life will usually make it for us. A good example of decision or overthinking paralysis you'll sometimes see on game shows. Often a super easy question will be asked and the contestant will have so overthought the answer that they freeze up and the buzzer times them out. And our second type of overthinking is rumination, or rumination about the past. This is mental looping, or again, a thought loop in which we dwell on the past, usually in a negative or emotionally distressing way. When we ruminate, we often become trapped in a whirlpool of guilt and fearful regrets. We usually refer to this as woulda, shoulda, coulda, or ifs and buts scenario. An important component of rumination is an obsession with the past while often blaming ourselves and becoming stuck there. A great example of this we all have experienced would be that one friend who has come to us and in confidence said, "Man, I just really screwed up." As we all have listened sympathetically to this friend, we begin to notice some things. Your friend most probably further said things like, "I know I shouldn't have said that," or "I wish I hadn't done that," or "Geez, I feel so stupid." They simply keep rehashing over and over in their brain the mistake they just made. Their mind just won't shut up to the point that they have trouble sleeping or enjoying simple daily activities. And the third type of overthinking is future tripping, also known as anticipatory anxiety. This is when we worry about something that hasn't even happened yet. As opposed to being trapped in the past, we future trip and worry about what lies ahead. It's literally an attempt to manipulate the future as if it's in our control. Our brain tells us that if we worry enough, we can control the future. Not true. If we spend our time worrying about things we can't control, it's pretty much a recipe for misery. A great example of this is a group I was consulting with on a marketing project. The group was in a state of gridlock and unable to move forward and complete projects on a timely basis. As I worked with the group individually and collectively, I began to see the problem. The manager of the group was often overwhelmed with the launch of a new project, especially if given a short time frame with high expectations. I could sense that he was under a significant amount of pressure. Finally, the big clue in his language became apparent. He would constantly say things like, "If we do this, I don't think we could meet our deadline," or "We can complete the project under this method. However, I don't think it will meet senior management's expectations." His indecisiveness in worrying about future outcomes or future tripping was paralyzing the group. So here are some practical examples of how to deal with overthinking. First, productive thinking. First and foremost is changing your mindset. Remember, there's a difference between harmful overthinking and problem-solving or constructive thinking. Overthinking is focused on the negative, is fear-based, and focuses on things you can't control. Productive thinking makes things more concrete and actionable or dynamic toward you can control. Create an action plan. Write down on a piece of paper situations for which you have a concern. Explore all different points of the situation, both positive and negative. Ask yourself what you're worried about and if you can do something about it. If yes, then proceed to the next actionable step for that point. If no, relinquish control, trust the process, and move on to the next step. Second, no future, no past. This has to do with the notion of mindfulness. The key here is building an awareness of when you're overthinking. When we're overthinking, we tend to focus on the future or the past. We have to tell ourselves that the future nor the past exist in the present. Focus on today, one day at a time. Intentionally put your energy on what you can handle and let go of the things that you can't. As you're going throughout your day, focus your energy on the next step in front of you. Keep taking the next logical step over and over again throughout the day. But some of you might be saying, how do we do that? Be aware and pay attention to your thoughts. Don't immerse or indulge yourself in worry stories. Notice when your brain is anxiously jumping to the future or the past. Remember from earlier, when we become anxious, we try to control the outcome by imagining the possibilities and reassuring ourselves, which is a temporary short-term solution that overthinking creates. Refocus your energy and your thoughts on what is in front of you at that moment. Use deep breathing to calm and help with focus on the present task. Take a deep breath in and exhale twice as slowly to regain calm and focus. Stay in the present. Focus your energy on what you can control. And last, number 3. Journaling. Keep a log of your daily thoughts and experiences. Write down what you might be thinking or feeling at different times of the day. You might write down thoughts like, "I'm really scared that I won't pass my exam tomorrow," future tripping, or "I'm really worried about that new group I met yesterday and that I left a really bad impression," rumination. At the end of the day, go back and review what you wrote in the day. The idea of allowing time to pass so you can shift from being in your thoughts and feelings at the moment to an observer of your thoughts and feelings is so very important. As you review your thoughts and feelings from earlier in the day from an observer position, ask yourself why questions like, Why do I feel like I'm going to fail the exam? Or why do I have an issue with how other people see me? This reminds me of an old saying. The person who knows how will always have a job and will probably work for the person who knows why. In other words, we can know how to do something, but why answers the question of intentionality and motivation in our lives. And motivation has to do with how we feel about our world around us. We either feel like doing something or we don't. So clearly, asking ourselves why deals with the root cause of our feelings and motivations, and consequently produces the best conditions or outcomes. So journal away. And remember, perfection is not the goal and is simply holding us back from our true potential in life. Failure is the root of all success because when you fail at something, you learn from it. You take all that experience, data, and it takes you on a new path and you succeed. In other words, if you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. I'm Dr. Lee.